Hello, this is Allyse again, and I'm glad that you joined me for today's Daily Mentor Call. This is call number 16, and we're going to be talking a little bit about classes for the next little while and exactly how you present a really effective intro to oils class. But before we get there, all classes don't go the way that we assume or the way we'd want them to go. So before we talk about an ideal class, let's talk about probably my least ideal class or the craziest class that I've ever had. So I remember it was in Utah. This was some years ago, and I was going to a home to present. And in this home, there were probably about 10 people that were there. And we were sitting in the living room right next to the kitchen. And the thing that I remember most about this home, and you'll find out later, is that they had this long shag carpet. So the carpet was just really long and you could kind of run your toes through it. It was nice. Well, I started my presentation and all the ladies were there ready to go. And there was several wellness advocates there with me. And in the middle of the presentation, probably, several minutes into it, I had a lady come to the door and she had a couple of kids with her. And usually, when someone comes in late, they try not to be too disturbing, but she was unique and she walked in and she made a couple people while I was presenting kind of move over and make room for her kids. And they sat there and I was kind of like, okay, we're ready to go. And, we had already done the part where everyone passes around the peppermint bottle and puts it in their hands and tries it. And I was going into the basics of essential oils, the 3 cool things about essential oils. And all of a sudden, her son, who was sitting literally right in front of her, just starts going, "Woo! Woo!" like that. And I was like, oh no. And he, the mom did exactly what moms do. It's innate. She couldn't help it. And it's probably a great thing, but she puts her hands in front of this child and he just vomits and the couch was situated in like a U shape. So he's in like the middle of the U, right? And he just vomits and she's catching his vomit and it's seeping through her fingers, right? Onto this like long shag carpet. And then he just keeps vomiting. So finally she just throws her hands down, lets the vomit drop, picks up the kid, and as he's continuing to vomit, runs into the kitchen, which was right next to it. So I didn't know what to do, right? And I ran into the kitchen. I grabbed a rag and I literally ran back. And as I'm running back, sitting right next to this child who had just vomited all over was a pregnant lady. And she starts to say, oh my gosh, I'm feeling nauseous. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is just like the movie Goonies where he starts a vomit mania and everyone's vomiting all over the movie theater, right? And I'm thinking, everyone is going to vomit right now. This is terrible. Well, a wellness advocate was sitting right next to this lady. And I don't know about you, but I don't carry a lemon spritz bottle everywhere, but she does. And she pulls out this lemon spritz bottle and she's like, and she's spraying everything down with lemon spritz. And I'm frantically trying to get all of this chunky vomit out of this long shag carpet. And I'm like, finally, I kind of give up with the rag and I'm literally pulling it out with my fingers to get it all out. So the smell goes away and I run back into the kitchen and I'm like, I throw the rag in the kitchen and I barely wash my hands off, not well at all, because I'm in the middle of my presentation. And so I go back and I kind of like, okay, are we okay? And, I start the presentation and we get through it. I finish the presentation. That mother decides that she possibly needs digestion for her son. So amazing thing. Anyway, we get through the presentation. It went all right. People signed up. And I was like, well, it was pretty late at night. We'd started the presentation quite late. And I get in my car and I start driving home. And it was probably maybe 15, 20 minutes away. And well, this is not what the cop said, but I felt like I rolled into a stop. I didn't quite stop at the stop sign, but the cop felt like I didn't stop at all. And in my rearview mirror, I see the cop lights, and I pull over. The cop comes to my front door and he says, "Can I see your driver's license and your registration?" And so with my vomit hands that had like peppermint and vomit smell on them, I grab my registration and my license and I hand it to the cop. And he goes, it was actually a girl. She goes, and she's smelling my hands and she looks at me and she says, "Excuse me, ma'am, have you been drinking?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't been drinking." And the cop goes, "It smells as if you've been drinking." And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that's my vomit hands. Like, it's like peppermint and vomit together. It probably smelled like a peppermint schnapps or something. I don't even know what that smells like, but I imagine that that's what it smells like. And so the cop is like looking at me and she gives me these eyes like, "I'm watching you," right? Well, anyway, she comes back and once again asks me, "Are you sure you haven't been drinking?" And I grab my oil bag, I open it up and I'm like, "No, this is what you're smelling. Like, I sell essential oils and I just came from a class, right? And my hands are dirty. This boy threw up and it's vomit and peppermint." And I'm like this babbling mess. And finally she gives me a ticket and lets me go. Well, anyway, me and my husband have a deal, right? Our deal is I get the tickets, he pays for them. Well, he apparently didn't do his part of the deal because months later, I'm sitting down on Sunday with my kids watching this spiritual, we call it general conference, right? This spiritual feast. It comes up 2 times a year. And I'm sitting with my kids downstairs and we're enjoying, the spirit, and we're enjoying talking about how we can be better people and be better, citizens of the country. And upstairs, we hear the doorbell ring and we hear this. Well, it's Sunday morning. My daughter runs upstairs and she comes down with these big eyes and she says, "Mom, there's a police officer upstairs and he says that he wants to talk to you." And I look at my husband because it just so happens that exact day is April Fool's Day. And it just so happens that Kirk Hamilton, my front line, we love to play jokes on each other. And I've played jokes on him and he's played jokes on me. And so I knew that Kirk Hamilton was putting somebody up to this. And I kind of, gave that smile because why would a cop be at my front door? So I gave this smile to my husband. I'm like, okay, I get it. It's April Fool's Day, right? So I walk upstairs and I look at this cop and he is in full cop gear, like hands on his hips, the whole thing. And I look at him and I'm like, "Hello, Mr. Officer," like that. And he goes, "Excuse me, are you Allyse Sedivy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And he's like, "You are actually, I have a warrant out for your arrest." And I'm like, "Oh, do you? I'm sure that you do." And he kind of looks at me like, "Are you serious? You're going to act like this with me?" And he's like, "Well, I have a warrant out for your failure to halt," right? And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, let alone if I did that. And I'm like, "Come on, officer. It's April Fool's Day. It's a good joke. Kirk Hamilton put you up to this, didn't he?" And the officer gets super bugged. And he says to me, "Do you want me to take you down right now and cuff you and take you into the police station?" And I felt like this guy is going way too far, right? So I turned to my husband because he was now upstairs and he goes, "Allyse," he's like, I think he actually said failure to stop, not failure to halt, but failure to stop. And he goes, "Allyse, the stop sign, I think it's legitimate. It's the stop sign. We never paid your ticket for you running that stop sign." And I was like, oh, and I look at the officer and he's like, I need $250 right now for you to post your bail. And I'm like, 250. Well, can I pay with a credit card? They're like, we don't accept credit card. And I'm like, can I pay with like a check? We don't accept check. So you want cash? Like only cash. And he's like, I have to have $250 cash right now, or I have to take you down to the police station. And I'm like, Patrick, don't our kids have that big jar of like quarters downstairs? Not kidding. That was the only thing I could think of. And he was like, yeah, Allyse, but it's quarters. And I look at the officer, I'm like, well, can anyone, post bail for me? He's like, yeah, anyone can. I'm like, my husband will go. He never paid the ticket. So anyway, my husband left. And as my husband left, my kids look at me like, Mom, you were going to be arrested like that? Anyway, to say the least, it was my worst class. And it was a class that will forever go down in infamy. So I'm not saying that we won't have bad classes, that things won't go wrong. And I'm not saying that all of our classes that we can set up for perfection and all 8 people, 10 people show up and they all purchase. But what I am saying is in the next calls that follow, we're going to show you the best case scenario and shoot for the ideal. And most of the time, you're going to have an incredible experience. And so will the people that come. Have a great day. Bye-bye.